Ava gripped the coffee tray in one hand and balanced a paper bag of pastries in the other as she climbed the narrow staircase to Mia's apartment. The early morning chill clung to her skin, but the thought of surprising her best friend with breakfast made the effort worth it. Mia had been raving about Ethan for months. From their spontaneous road trips to cozy nights spent binge-watching terrible movies, Mia's happiness was evident in every story she shared. Ava had listened with genuine interest but couldn't deny the faint bitterness gnawing at her. Mia had found someone who made her glow, while Ava's love life remained stubbornly uneventful. Ava reached Mia's door and dug out the spare key Mia had given her ages ago. She hesitated, her fingers tracing the cold metal before finally unlocking the door. They'd always had an open-door policy. "Come over whenever you want," Mia would say with a laugh. "You're basically family." The apartment was warm and cozy, the scent of lavender and vanilla floating in the air. Ava slipped off her shoes and padded softly across the wooden floor. But just as she was about to call out, a burst of laughter echoed from down the hall. Mia's laughter. Light, carefree, the kind Ava hadn't heard in a long time. It was followed by a deeper chuckle, Ethan's, Ava assumed. She hesitated, her hand tightening around the paper bag as curiosity tugged at her. The bedroom door was partially open, and from her spot in the living room, she could catch glimpses of them through the gap. Mia and Ethan were tangled up in each other, their smiles bright and their voices lowered to a playful murmur. They looked so lost in their own little world, a bubble of happiness Ava felt almost guilty for intruding upon. Heat rose to her cheeks, embarrassment prickling at her skin. She'd walked straight into a moment she had no right to witness. Her stomach twisted, half from the awkwardness and half from something she couldn't quite name. Setting the breakfast down on the kitchen counter, Ava took a shaky breath and retreated to the couch, her mind racing. She wasn't sure if she should just leave a note and slip out quietly or wait and pretend nothing had happened. Before she could make up her mind, the bedroom door swung open. Mia emerged, her messy hair and flushed cheeks a testament to the laughter and warmth she'd just been wrapped up in. When her eyes landed on Ava, her surprise quickly melted into delight. "Ava, you're here early." Mia beamed, completely unfazed by the unexpected visit. "Come on, let me introduce you to Ethan." And just like that, Ava was pulled into their bright, beautiful world, trying her best to ignore the strange ache blooming in her chest. Ava forced a smile as Mia led her into the small but cozy kitchen. Ethan followed, his easygoing demeanor apparent even as he smoothed his rumpled hair. Despite her awkwardness, Ava couldn't help but notice how relaxed Mia looked around him, her smile glowing with unfiltered joy. "So, you're the famous Ava I've heard so much about," Ethan said, his voice warm and genuine. "Mia talks about you all the time. It's nice to finally meet the person who's been her rock for so long." The compliment was unexpected, and Ava felt her guard slip, if only slightly. "Nice to meet you too. And, sorry for barging in like that. I wanted to surprise Mia with breakfast, but, surprise, right?" She chuckled nervously, her gaze darting between them. Mia laughed, her voice light and unbothered. "You've always had the worst timing. But it's okay, I'm glad you're here. Breakfast smells amazing, by the way." They settled around the small dining table, the pastries and coffee spread out like a makeshift feast. Ethan's presence was comfortable, his conversation effortlessly charming. He asked Ava questions about her work, her interests, even the embarrassing high school stories Mia had apparently told him about. Ava found herself laughing along, feeling some of her unease dissolve. But the more she watched Mia and Ethan interact, the more that unsettling ache grew. They fit together so perfectly, their conversations flowing like they'd known each other for years rather than months. "Ethan's been my sanity lately," Mia admitted, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. "Honestly, Ava, he's amazing. I've never felt this way about anyone before." Ava swallowed, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second. "That's really great, Mia. I'm happy for you. Truly." She meant it. She really did. But the envy beneath her words was impossible to ignore. It wasn't that she wanted Ethan. It was what they had. The easy affection, the shared laughter, the quiet intimacy that seemed so effortless between them. Ethan must have noticed the tightness in her smile because he leaned forward, his gaze thoughtful. You're really important to MIA. I can tell. And I want you to know, I'm not here to take her away from you. Ava blinked, his words catching her off guard. I know that. It's just, I guess seeing her so happy makes me realize how long it's been since I felt that way. About anyone. The confession slipped out before she could catch it, and the vulnerability left her feeling raw and exposed. Emma reached across the table, squeezing her hand gently. You deserve happiness, Ava. It'll come. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to find. The sincerity in Mia's eyes both comforted and stung. Ava nodded, her chest tight but her smile a little more genuine. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe her own happiness was out there, waiting for her to be brave enough to chase it. As the afternoon wore on, Ethan excused himself to take a work call, leaving Ava and Mia alone in the quiet of the living room. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting the room in soft amber hues. Ava curled her legs beneath her, her fingers nervously tracing the fabric of the couch. Mia watched her with gentle curiosity. You've been quiet today. And not just because of, walking in on us. She laughed lightly, but concern glimmered in her eyes. Is everything okay? Ava hesitated, her throat tight. Yeah, it's just. Seeing you and Ethan together like that, it made me realize something. What's that? That you're genuinely happy. Ava's words spilled out, trembling with the weight of her honesty. And I'm so glad you are, May. But it also made me feel like I'm stuck. Like I've been living in this bubble of work and routine, convincing myself I'm fine when I'm really just lonely. Mia's expression softened, her gaze steady and compassionate. Ava, you don't have to pretend you're okay all the time. It's okay to want more. I know, Ava admitted, her voice strained. But it's hard to see you so in love and feel like I'm just existing. I'm happy for you, truly. But it's like watching someone find the key to a door you didn't even realize you were locked behind. Emma leaned forward, her eyes searching Ava's. I didn't find that key overnight. I went through so much heartbreak and disappointment before I met Ethan. And honestly, I was terrified of letting myself feel this way again. Ava glanced down, her fingers tangled together. So, how did you let yourself believe it was real? Emma took a deep breath, her gaze turning distant for a moment before locking onto Ava's. I stopped waiting for the perfect moment. I let myself be vulnerable, even when it was scary. And I realized that just because I'd been hurt before didn't mean I couldn't find something real. The words sank into Ava's chest, stirring something she'd buried long ago. A courage she'd almost forgotten she had. I guess I've been too scared to try. To put myself out there and risk getting hurt again, Ava whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Mia squeezed her hand. You deserve to be happy, Ava. But you have to let yourself believe it's possible. Love doesn't always show up the way you expect. But that doesn't make it any less real. Ava nodded, the tightness in her chest loosening, her thoughts slowly untangling. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe her own happiness wasn't as unreachable as she'd thought. I think I'm ready to try, Ava said softly, her words carrying a newfound determination. Mia's smile was warm and knowing. Good. And I'll be here every step of the way. The sun had started to dip below the horizon, splashing shades of gold and pink across the sky. Ava glanced at her phone, realizing how much time had passed since she'd first walked into Mia's apartment. It felt like a lifetime ago. Ethan returned from his call, his smile easy and welcoming. I hope I didn't miss anything important. Just some girl talk, Amir replied with a playful smirk, nudging Ava's shoulder. The kind you'd find painfully boring. Ethan chuckled, but his gaze lingered on Ava with gentle curiosity. Well, I'm glad you came by, Ava. It's nice seeing Amaya with her best friend. She always lights up when she talks about you. Ava couldn't help but smile, her heart warming at his sincerity. Despite her earlier reservations, she could see why Mia adored him. Ethan wasn't just charming, he was genuinely good for her. And Ava could no longer deny that. I guess you're all right, Ethan, Ava teased, her voice lighter than before. Even if you did steal my best friend's heart. He laughed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I'd say it's more like she let me borrow it. But I promise, I'm taking good care of it. Mia rolled her eyes, but the affection in her gaze was undeniable. Okay, enough with the sappy lines, you two. Ava, are you staying for dinner? I can make that pasta you love. Ava hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay, to soak up the comfort of her friend's happiness. But another part of her knew she needed some time alone to process everything. To allow herself to truly absorb what Mia had said. Actually, I think I'll head home, Ava replied softly. I have some things to think about. Mia's expression shifted from disappointment to understanding. Of course. But, Ava. Yeah. Promise me you'll give yourself a chance to be happy. To go out there and find what you deserve. Ava's throat tightened, but she nodded firmly. I promise. With a round of hugs and a final, genuine smile exchanged with Ethan, Ava made her way to the door. As she stepped outside, the cool evening air embraced her, its crispness invigorating. Walking down the street, Ava allowed herself to breathe, her thoughts swirling but not as chaotically as before. For the first time in ages, the bitterness had faded, replaced by something more powerful, hope. Mia's words echoed in her mind, a gentle reminder that happiness was not just something to envy from afar. It was something she could reach for, even if it meant risking vulnerability. That night, Ava curled up on her couch, her phone resting in her hand. Her thumb hovered over a dating app she hadn't opened in months. A small, daring smile tugged at her lips. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to try again.